All right, guys. All right. I am super, super excited today because we have an amazing discussion ready to go for you guys on Chat GPT. So if you haven't heard of Chat GPT before, it's an AI website that allows you to type in prompts and it searches the internet for you and synthesizes the information. It's totally awesome. And just for those of you just joining, hi, I'm Dr. Emily from the Joy of Coding Academy. And today I and one of our senior software developer mentors, Chad, who is amazing, is going to be talking about what the future of software development looks like, given this brand new AI tool, Chat GPT, that is taking the internet by storm. And just so you guys have some sense of Chad and who he is, because everyone who's inside the Joy of Coding Academy knows him. We've been, working with him for a long time. He's one of our testing experts. He comes to us with 30 years development experience, probably over 30 years at this point. He's worked for amazing companies, Pivotal, IBM. He now works for GitLabs, and he just is an all-around amazing developer who has so much experience in this space, working with and building software for software development teams. Awesome. Chad, is there anything else that you'd like to add, just up front?
That's a nice introduction. I'd call myself more jack of all trades, master of almost none.
Awesome. Spoken like a true lifelong learner. Yeah.
Engineer.
I love it. Spoken like a true developer, right? Because as programmers and six-figure software developers, we are lifelong learners. We are always learning, always adapting, and learning how to play and have fun with the next technology that's come around the corner. Awesome. Speaking of which, the next technology that's come around the corner is Chat GPT. And just to give everybody a little bit of background, in the Facebook group last week, I actually generated a code with Chat GPT and we worked on it. It didn't work right out of the box, so I can absolutely talk more about that today if the conversation wends that way. But where this motivation came from is everybody's talking about Chat GPT. It's all over. And I got a message from someone who was learning to become a six-figure software developer last week, and they were panicked. And I said, oh my goodness, did Chat GPT just make software development irrelevant? And I think we can effectively answer that question. Chad, would you like to weigh in first?
The short answer is no, I think. I can elaborate down many different paths.
Yeah, absolutely. And so to summarize what we did last week, I think there's a lot of directions we could take this. So Chad, I'm totally game for the journey, whichever direction you want to take it. But to summarize my perspective of what I saw with just a little bit of playing with Chat GPT, I think if you're focused on the fundamentals of programming, and that's about as far as you want to go, yes, those jobs will be at risk. These are called low-code jobs. So these are jobs in the Facebook group, in the Joy of Coding Facebook group, we talk about the 7 basics. And it's the first fundamental building block on your step to becoming a six-figure software developer. And yes, if that's where you intend to go and stop, those jobs are the most likely to be replaceable with ChatGPT. Doesn't mean they'll all be, but they're going to have the most likelihood. But a lot of the other jobs are still going to absolutely be essential and necessary, because what company is going to trust code copied and pasted from a website on their live deployed system? No, there's going to need to be a human in that loop responsible for that, so that when things go wrong, so there's someone there to fix it. Just like, would you put a self-driving car on the road without a driver in the driver's seat? Right? Maybe not. Maybe not. And we did see, I created tic-tac-toe in JavaScript using Chat GPT, and there were bugs and we had to go fix them. Did it cut down development time? Yes. Did it replace the human? No. So I don't know. So Chad, that's kind of like the low level use of Chat GPT. Would you like to speak more to like the higher level of being a six-figure software developer and the role that Chat GPT might be able to play?
That would be good.
Yeah, I'll start by just some more general background. So I've been ever since Google announced Copilot. First of all, ChatGPT is one particular company's implementation of artificial general intelligence, as opposed to like autocorrect or, playing chess or something. It's general intelligence. And I believe it's the most fundamental change I've seen in my career. It's going to, in my opinion, change the world. It's definitely going to change software development. It is going to put a lot of people out of work. It's going to, not to get too far off track, it's going to have to change how we have to think about society and the nature of work, I think, for the number of people that it puts out of work and how we allow them to still make a living. Having said that, I've been using this for about a year. Yeah, a little over a year. In GitLab, I was actually a beta tester on Tab 9, which is sort of a competitor to Copilot, which is from GitHub, which is owned by Microsoft, which is based on Codex, which is sort of the code AI engine. And from the first time I started using it, I knew it would be a paradigm shift because it was creepy. It literally read my mind. It knew what I wanted to do and could write out multiple lines of code with a high degree of accuracy. Sometimes I got it wrong. Sometimes I got it like 90% right. And not just code documentation. Like I could write a few sentences and it would finish the sentence that I wanted to write for me. So I think it's going to change the world. Another way to restate what you said, I think we will always need creative humans who can think about users' requirements, what needs to be done, and the what of software development. The robots aren't going to do that anytime soon. The how to do it, like given a prompt of what I want you to do, it will tell you how to do it, and for the large part, write the code for you. And with greater and greater accuracy, I think it's going to get much better, much faster. That's what it's going to do. So, just knowing purely the syntax and the mechanics and all of that, like it's going to be a gradual thing, but in the long term, it's going to be a higher level of abstraction. I was trying to think of a good metaphor when I knew I was going to do this. It's like, in the early days, the picture of Margaret Hamilton next to the giant stack of stuff for the Apollo moon mission, right? It was like they were at machine code, like moving memory around in banks of the computer. That's very low level. And then Admiral Grace Hopper, another wonderful woman engineer, she came up with COBOL, which was ground changing. It's like, reads like English. It's a higher level of abstraction. It's still very primitive. I was a COBOL programmer. You're still like literally just moving around chunks of text and data, mostly manually. And then there's higher levels of abstraction on that, C, C++, functional programming, object-oriented programming, and then, with Ruby and Python, domain-specific languages, like if you're actually writing code, but it looks like you're really writing English. And then frameworks on top of that, Django and Rails, like in Rails, like just for the couple of lines, you can have a complete web app, it just does everything by convention. So there's this higher and higher level of abstractions where you have to write less and less stuff, but it's still like you telling it how to do it. And I see this as yet another level of abstraction. It's like, okay, I'm not even going to write the code. I'm not going to tell the computer how to do it. I'm just going to tell it what I want it to do. And maybe it doesn't get it right the first time. And I will tell it how to fix that. And it will still fix it for me, but I will not be directly writing the code myself. I will be a prompt engineer. The prompts that I give to the AI will be the level of abstraction that I'm working at. That's why I see this after having worked with it for about a year. It's going to change the world, but it's not going to put everybody out of a job.
No, for sure. It will, and like you said, it will put some people out of jobs. Absolutely, right. And society will have to have rules and laws and support structures in place, in society to help smooth that transition. But in terms of software development specifically, now, Chad, you'd meant there's a couple of things I'd love to kind of draw out. I know you're right. I'm going to be thinking about an analogy as well for this, because one of the analogies I often use as metaphors is building, right? So I wonder if I was thinking it's kind of like a hammer versus a nail gun, but I think this is bigger. I think this is more transformative than just going from hammering in a nail to like an automated nail gun. But, we now have machines that can 3D print houses, right? But they're not necessarily designing the house. Like the human is still designing the house. It's still directing it, right? But like now we don't have to have a team of humans creating the house. There's just a big 3D printer that makes it. Would you say that analogy might be a decent fit here?
Maybe it's yeah, you're using tools to do it. Like one analogy I've always had, like when I compare, for example, people using a Vim or an editor like that, where it's a lot of primitives, but they can sort of customize it versus using an IDE like JetBrains. It's like you're a woodworker or a metal worker, and there's this lathe, right? And it's a $50,000 lathe, and it's got a million knobs and dials and everything on it. And it's like, but that's your job. And so you learn how to use all of those things because you are a craftsperson, and you learn how to use all of those things. So it's just like learning to work at that higher level of abstraction because you're an expert in the field. And will everybody need to do that? No. But once the rote tasks as artificial general intelligence gets better and better at it, and it gets better at using specific AI, applied AI, to do the jobs that it doesn't know how to do and put it all together, which is going to happen sooner than later, there will be less need for the lower skill work and more skill for the person who understands the big picture and how it all works together.
Exactly. So I almost wonder if some of the lower tier software development jobs that are like in that 40 to 60K range, if maybe some of those might go away, but there might be, some room there in the 6-figure and up type realm. I don't know if that's how you see it.
Yeah, I mean, and the gotcha is like you and watching, K-Town go through over the past, 2 to 3 years of climbing that learning curve. It's just a vast amount of stuff you have to get to know. And you don't get to that level without doing and having the hands-on experience with the low level stuff. So it's sort of you have to go through that to get there.
Right, exactly. And just for anyone who's watching at home,
how to do things.
Right, exactly. So we still, yes, it's this catch-22 where like you might not be able to be employed for it, but you still have to know how to do it, right, to get to the level that you can be employed by it. And just for the reference for anybody watching at home that doesn't know, Chad's partner is working to become a 6-figure software developer. She's one of our junior devs inside the Joy of Coding Academy. She's done an amazing job. She's, so just he's been watching that firsthand, how that experience goes. And the challenges in that, it's a journey for sure. But you can absolutely get there. I love that. And one of the other things that actually, I just want to share, there were a couple comments that I thought were really great, like just as part of this analogy conversation we're talking about. Jean Marie had posted, did React or Django put software engineers out of work? No, it just changed the nature of the work that they did, right? So like Chat GPT is going to be a tool, a really important and impactful tool. It will change the employment landscape, but it's going not necessarily for the 6-figure software developer level and up, right? So it's really, but it's going to make software developers more efficient and more effective on their own. It
was another high level of abstraction. Like before, there was random sort of crappy JavaScript frameworks, prototyped and why UI and stuff like that. But React sort of said, no, this is the right way to do it. And it came out of Elm, out of Evan's master's thesis for the Elm language, which is what React and the whole reactive loop is based on. It's these higher levels of abstraction that people are like, oh yes, this is obviously a better way to do it. Everybody jumps on the board. And it's usually not the first or second or third. It's like the person after that who learns from all of the good things and the bad things, the successes and mistakes of what went before it. And it's like, here's one that got it right, which is sort of React, which is Rails. And that's why I think what we eventually end up may not be Chat GPT. It may be some open source thing or some mashup or something completely different, but it will be something that is even better.
Right. And actually, what I think is so amazing is, for a long time, I've been promoting this approach to learning to become a 6-figure software developer by using code as a template and learning to adapt it. And basically what Chat GPT said is, oh yeah, here, I can create your own custom templates for you that you can then install and get in place. So I'm super excited about this, because the skills that are so important in the six-figure software developers wheelhouse are still going to be important. It's just that writing from scratch phase, right? It may take on a different role. It may look a little different. Might be writing a prompt, right? Or how do you Google effectively? Like, how do you get the query right? How do you get the prompt right? Yeah, Chad, did you have something to add there? I think you're muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, and one thing you said at the beginning, like it's not going out and searching the internet for you. Like it has been trained on the internet like up to around 2021, and it has that. And I listened to a this really interesting keynote talk about AI, probably from maybe a year ago, and they said that it came out of research into how to make a better translation engine, and that's sort of the essence of Codex and the core of how we do some modern AI. I'm probably like oversimplifying and getting some of this wrong, but the essence of this keynote was they don't know how this works. And we actually I never watched Silicon Valley. We finished binging that like last night, and it's funny, the end of that was around the AI, and it's like it was turning evil. And a friend of mine who's really following the AI and really into it, and he's posting all these articles on Discord on our channel, literally just posted an article about that the second day, like how can you train it to not do nefarious things because it's trying to achieve some goal that it thinks it's that Silicon Valley, whatever that was, 2019 has come true. But what this keynote said is that they took like 20 AI researchers and they're like, okay, like how does this work under the covers? Like it's a thing of its own, and it is figuring out these answers, and they really don't know. It's progressed through its self-learning beyond the ability of us to understand it, which I think is, if for no other reason, a paradigm shift. Like it's something I've never seen before. And the hands-on reason is like when I started using it, is like, how is it reading my mind? So I think it's a paradigm shift.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Oh my goodness. And I think there's a couple other pieces in the chat too. I just want to bring up Kristen W. She's one of our project managers inside the Joy of Coding Academy. She said that Chat GPT totally loses the pipeline view as well. What does that mean? Well, when you're developing a software project on a team, you don't just throw your code on the internet anymore, right? You're in production. There is a live website with live users, and you have a code change. How do you go from this code change on a team over there live on the internet with potentially millions of users going to see it instantaneously? Okay, how does that work? So there's a whole pipeline involved there. And so ChatGPT doesn't know about the pipeline. It doesn't know about the process. It doesn't know about your testing standards or what expectations you have, or at least right now it's prohibitively expensive to kind of articulate all of those. And so design and testing, right? What happens on either side of development is also critical, and ChatGPT is not going to replace that. And it's always going to need someone checking and vetting its work. Just as, they experimented with completely automated self-driving cars. And unfortunately, there was some loss, right? like you're not going to just throw AI into a situation that's high stakes. You're going to have a human, highly trained human in the mix, kind of looking at that. Coding, like as Kristen W. said, coding's not just coding, right? It's a whole process. It's part of a bigger ecosystem. I don't know, Chad, if you have, with all of your experience with software development teams, if you have anything to weigh in on there with what you think Chat GPT, the role that it plays in the bigger software production process.
Yeah, and I completely agree. And that's what I was talking about. Like it'll still need humans to tell it the what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like what do we do? Well, you figure that out by talking to other humans who are users or stakeholders or, people that are want to use your application, and understanding what they want, and having very smart designers who understand how to do design user interfaces and user experiences to do that. And then you write the code, and it's like, as far as the implementation, it'll maybe write your code for you, maybe make sure you don't do security bugs and other stuff like that. But how am I going to architect this thing and put it together? Like it's definitely not at that level yet.
For sure, for sure. And whenever you have an existing software code base, you can use Chat GPT to cut your time. It's a time saver, it's efficiency, right? Okay, instead of sitting down and writing it from scratch, I might be able to give Chat GPT a prompt and it would generate some code that might be a good fit. But then someone has to actually install that code and test it and verify that, yes, it does in fact fix what they think. And right now we are, I don't know, at least I don't believe we're anywhere near that level of automation yet. Like basically code that automatically patches itself and tests its own, because
It's pretty good at writing unit tests.
right,
And
exactly.
you can take a class in and it will spit out a
Perfect.
pretty good unit test, but that's
Awesome.
bottom of the pyramid testing, not top of the pyramid.
Right, exactly. And at the end of the day, a human is always needed at some level to vet and verify that what we are testing for is the intended behavior, like you said, right? Like the designer and the tester, like someone says, we want to create this. And then a tester says, did we create this? The human has to be involved, because unless it is exactly what has been done before, like if you're going to create another version of Google Docs or Microsoft PowerPoint or an email client, yeah, there is going to be cases out there that Chat GPT eventually or something like it can eventually do for you. But if you're creating something brand new, and if you're creating software, like you're probably creating something new, there's probably not an answer out there that a human like has already come up with. Like you, the designer, will have to create that answer, right?
Yeah. One thing that it is good at, like it can act as a pair programmer for you, like somebody to talk over with. Like a good example recently for my day job, I was designing something. I'm like, I think we need a state machine here. Like a state machine is an algorithm structure, like it keeps the state of things. And so I was like, well, I'm going to have the robots write this for me. So I like said, write me a state machine in Ruby, and it wrote it. And I'm like, no, actually, like I want you to throw an exception on everyone. And I like went through these multiple iterations of telling it how to change the code, and it did that, and it came out with something. I was like, yeah, that's pretty much what I want. And I'm like, can it write the test for me? Can it write a unit test for me? So I took that code and I pasted it in, and I wrote sort of a fairly obscure style of Ruby RSpec test. And I said, I want you to write a table test for the state machine. Here's a small example of how I want you to write it from another one that I copied from the code base. And it wrote that. And then I was just sitting there staring at it. And this was maybe like 20 minutes of work. And then I realized I don't need a state machine at all. Like I'm overcomplicating this problem. Actually, the state is managed somewhere else, and I just need to have it tell me. But without having the robot write that code and that really tight iteration and feedback loop to come to, and I got to the point of the test, like I probably would have written code for hours, or maybe not realized it at all or till a lot longer. But I came to that realization, I'm going down the wrong path and I don't even need to do what I thought I needed to do.
Right.
But it allowed me to do that in 20 minutes as opposed to hours.
I love that. I love that. And I love how that illustrates the partnership, right? That really that AI is a
but
tool.
I had to come to that realization as a human, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Wrong.
Yeah. ChatGPT is not going to say, hey, you don't need this solution, but I'll make it for you anyways. Right. Like, I love that. So good. And just that partnership between the AI and the human, right? That it speeds us up, right? Because you might have sat down and typed that all out and implemented and then realized, shoot, I don't need it. Like, I know I've been there. Like I sat down to write something and then I realized 3 days later, there was actually an unsolvable problem in disguise. And I had realized it right away. Great. I was never going to solve it. Doesn't matter how many days I bang my head against the wall, right? So it can kind of help us out with some of those things. Like it helps speed us up so that we can get on the appropriate path, the optimal path more quickly, right?
And it also lies to you. Sometimes it just very confidently tells you the completely wrong thing. And you need to know.
Do you have an example of that? It sounded like it did it in one of our sessions. I didn't get to hear the exact example.
It happened several times.
Okay.
Like asking it about obscure APIs. Like we've been rewriting the web IDE for GitLab as VS Code. Scrapping our homegrown one, and my colleague was using it a lot to like figure out these, like, how do I use this obscure internal, rarely documented Microsoft API for VS Code, and it would give pretty good answers, like things that would have taken maybe an hour or more of Googling. it would tell you, but occasionally it would just say something like, that doesn't exist. Like, did you make that up? Was it like some version that in the past, but it is definitely not a thing now.
Wow. Oh my goodness. I love that. So yeah, so you still, the human's still in the loop. The human's still in the loop. I love this.
But
Oh my goodness.
it was indistinguishable. It was like really confident. Yes, use this API call. It's like, nope, that's
It
not a
doesn't
thing.
exist. Yeah, and I think that's actually a really good point. I don't know if people are aware of this when they're using AI or thinking about AI, that the current AI that's out there has learned from the internet. So it's learned from everything that humans have externalized. But like you said, if it's something obscure that like if it's hard to Google, it may also be hard to get the AI for it because the data is sparse. The data is not there. So the likelihood of an error is going to go way up if you're asking questions about, so you need that sweet spot. It's going to be really great for code that's really well understood already. And that's, so when you're pushing the boundaries, whenever you're doing something new, there's going to be gaps where it's not going to fill in the details for you.
Yep.
Yep, exactly.
So I had one other topic, but I didn't know if you had
Awesome.
another.
Well, I have one other comment from John I want to bring up. I just want to make sure you were cool. We closed that thread out. So awesome. I just
Sure.
love how we're really pulling out this discernment about when to use AI, when it's a challenge. I love it. So John asked, do we think, and I don't actually know the answer to this question. We'll see what emerges in our discussion. Do you think it's going to change the dynamic of now needing a degree again? So like right now, you don't necessarily have to have a computer science degree to get a great job as a coder, because there's a little bit of a disconnect between what companies are looking for and what software developers, the skills they need to have, and what academia is offering as the typical computer science degree. So I guess John's question is it going to go the other way? You have to have like a degree in AI to be able to be a software developer again. I'm curious. I have an idea, but I'm curious, Chad, what you think.
No, I think it's going to move it even the other direction. Like I've long said that this is the one field where, if all of the information is out there and you can take boot camp, that will definitely help you out. It'll give you focus. But if you have the discipline, you have the methodical, logical approach to it, you have patience, you know how to not give up, keep trying different things until they work, and you have the passion for it. That's always what it's taken to be a good programmer, and not a degree, in my opinion. Some of the best programmers I've ever known have had no degrees or English degrees or things like that. I don't think there's any different. You can teach yourself if you have what it takes. Not everybody does.
Exactly.
I don't
That's
know.
awesome.
I shouldn't say that. You say everybody does. Sorry. But in my experience, not everybody does.
Yeah, well, I guess everybody can, but there's different phases of how quickly we can move through. But yes, and there's tricks that we can use to fast track that for absolutely everybody. But there may be like, is everyone going to be that Google developer who's making 500K and up? I will not say yes to that, right? Like, yeah, I think that, but like, is there a 6-figure software developer job out there for everybody, regardless of like level for coding ability? Yes, I think we can actually get people ready for that level. Can I predict the next $1 million Google or Amazon developer? No, I don't think we can get there.
Getting closer and closer, more attainable with inflation, right?
Yeah, right. Oh, that's true. That's true. I love that. Oh my goodness. And there was one other thing about degrees. I don't want to derail us completely, but really software development is an area that really requires it's a 21st century skill, and it needs a 21st century educational solution. So I'm not going to go on my soapbox. I could speak about this for hours. I was a tenured professor for 10 years. I tried to fix the system from within to help make computer science degrees actually give students what they need to succeed as software developers. And I did it, but it was basically giving my students 2 degrees, one in software development, hands-on practical software development, one in computer science. And it was unfair for both of us. It killed us all. They got there. They got all those 6-figure jobs, but yeah, the cost was just, it wasn't aligned. And so really if you think about it, colleges and universities were invented in the Middle Ages, right? 1600s. Like this model hasn't changed. And really it exploded in the 1800s, and it hasn't significantly changed since. It is the only field I know of in the college and university system where the field actually changes while you are teaching it in a single semester. How long has algebra or geometry been around? Thousands of years, right? The college system is designed where you get really knowledgeable on something, you figure out how to teach it, and you just hit wash, rinse, repeat over and over and over again. But in software development, every week it's changing if you want to keep up with the latest trends, right? And so you need an educational model that's going to adapt with the changing technologies. Okay, soapbox rant over. No, Chad, if you had anything you wanted to add to that.
If you are the type of person who knows how to learn, knows how to learn, then you will be well set.
Yeah, and you'll love it, right? We're lifelong learners. Yeah, like software development is where the lifelong learners come to play. Right? Like this is it. Awesome. And I love, so Art had a comment too about in the Facebook group about, he's been using Chat GPT for some accessibility with one of his sites, and it's been super helpful, but you're still the one developing it for the end user. Exactly, right? So there's still a human in the loop generating that prompt. Excellent. Awesome. Awesome. Cool. So I have like one other thing we could talk about, but I'm really curious to hear, Chad, like what you had one other topic too.
I just wanted to mention, like, I think it can be dangerous when you are using it for something you're not familiar with, because then you don't have that ability to know when it's wrong. And
Yes.
I've had a little bit of that. Like recently I've been having to write Golang code, which I know nothing about, never done. And I was using Chat GPT to like even know the syntax. I'm like, how do I make a struct? How do I loop over a struct of this thing and pull whatever this field out? And it would give me that. But I also rely on, like, I know general software and like algorithms and logic, so I could sort of know where I was going. But I also relied on other powerful tools like my IDE. Like when I wrote it in there, it underlined in red everything I had wrong. I had linting and static analysis set up, and all of the tools that I could to help me out, to tell me when I'm writing wrong code, because I don't have that internalized and memorized yet. So it's a master craftsperson, a very competent craftsperson will use powerful tools to get their job done, and they will invest their time into the learning curve to always learn and try to use those powerful tools, because that is what will put them at that level of abstraction, of efficiency, and being able to be valuable.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I love that, Chad. Thanks for sharing that and just highlighting that, because really at the end of the day, what separates the 6-figure and up software developers from the lower tiers is really that efficiency. Like how quickly are they able to learn their tools, and do what they need to do their tasks with their tool set. And
AI
I thought
one of those more powerful, like probably the most powerful tool that's ever come out. And you're going to have to learn to be a prompt engineer. That's going to be
exactly
one of the biggest tools in your toolbox.
Yep, the prompt engineer. I love it. And also that what you said that, so you're 30-year veteran, right? You've been doing this a long time, you know a ton, and you're picking up a new language, right? Because that is the life of a software developer, is always learning new things. And I love that you emphasized, well, I don't know it that well yet. So it's not that you can't move forward or learn it, but you recognize, okay, right now in this moment, I'm not a master at it yet. But what does a master do? A master software developer sets up his tool set so that he doesn't have to know it all and can make mistakes and bump into walls a little bit. And there's something there to catch him and tell when things need to be adapted. Would you say that's kind of an analogy for, what you set up for yourself?
Set up those feedback loops, use all of the tools that I have available to me. And because I don't know, I can't do anything without giving a plug for JetBrains, because I've learned JetBrains IDEs. Even though I don't know Golang, I know my way around the JetBrains IDE. And it's like, all right, I know exactly what it's telling me to do, how to drive the editor and all of the plugins. Even though I don't know the syntax of this particular language, I'm very familiar with this tool, because they have it for every major language and ecosystem.
Right. Yes, I love it. So knowing your tools, right? Knowing your tooling, getting efficient with them. And I think that's always a balance, because I know I talk to a lot of students that, they feel like they're just one more language away from getting a job. They just need to learn that one more thing. But really, it's about both and growing all of those things, that it's about having a little bit of your tooling and not necessarily needing to know it all, but having the system and process in place. It's basically what you're saying, the tool set and the process of development in place, so that you can learn as you go a little bit. I think it's kind of what you're saying, right? That you're learning as you go.
Yeah. And for me, and I think the best jobs will be the ones that recognize that, when they say, you must be proficient in some language and be able to prove it. And, an expert in some language, but it doesn't have to be the one that we're working in necessarily. We want people that can learn.
Exactly. Exactly. And I know that I do sometimes have to do some education on the employer side as well, because this, like the whole society, like this whole ecosystem is kind of permeated with this idea that you have to like know this language, when really in reality it's, well, can you learn anything? Can you solve anything? Can you get your tools in place? I think the analogy I would use is like like basically a novice developer might be bowling. You know, you guys have been bowling? People have been bowling, right? You know, bowling alley, right? You got these lanes. Have you guys ever seen the bumpers? Right? They might these huge giant balloons that go down either side. So you can't actually bowl into the gutter. Like you'll always hit a pin. And so basically, or in the really fancy bowling alleys, they have these little retractable ones that you can pull out. So it's what I kind of think of it as the pro developer. They know how to put the bumpers in their lane. So they're always hitting the pins down. Right? It's not about learning. So a novice might not use the bumpers. Like, I can do it. I can do it. And the pro is like, no, I know I'm going to make mistakes and I'm just going to put my bumpers in so that when I make mistakes, it doesn't totally derail me. I don't know. Would you say that's accurate, Chad?
Yeah, that's a good one. Where you're like, this lane is never going to work. I need to realize that I just give up on this lane and I'm going to switch to a different lane, or maybe a whole new bowling alley, because at the end we got to get this job done. We can't keep banging our head against the wall.
Yes, exactly. And maybe that solution is possible, but maybe with that technology in that environment, it's not for you. Okay. And it's okay to like shift and pivot and find the pathway forward. Yes, absolutely.
I mean, it's a flawed metaphor because all lanes are the same, but you get the concept.
I do. Well, you know, some of them might have different lighting. Anyways, I get the concept for sure. I love this. I love it. So good. And the other thing we can pull back. I know we've been talking about this a lot with the Chat GPT and AI and you know, where the human is in this mix. And I was curious, you know, you'd mentioned that the Chat GPT code that you're generating, it was kind of getting you to 90%, right? And I think the curious question would be is, okay, in the 10% that's left, we've already talked about the human has to be in the loop for the prompt and for the test to determine if we've succeeded. But then that 90%, how much of that do you think is just, well, ChatGPT is just kind of new. It's not, it could be more fine-tuned, or how much of that 10% that the code isn't yet is something that the human's really still going to have to be involved in? Do you have any sense of that?
It's I'll go back to like the what versus the how. It's like, well, okay, what you're doing isn't exactly what I wanted you to do, but I need to be aware of that. It's like, okay, I wrote out a comment, like loop over this thing and pull out this attribute and sum it up, whatever, something like that. And maybe it did that, but it pulled out the wrong attribute, like everything else it got right, all of the other plumbing and boilerplate. But you have to know that, oh, that's not the right attribute. I have to change this. And like with something like Google Copilot, that's, you know, it gives you multiple options of like, how about this, or how about this, or how about this? And you can choose from them. Maybe one will be pretty close and you pick it and tweak it a little bit, that's a different experience than Chat GPT, where you're iterating, you're saying, okay, that's close. Actually, I want you to throw an exception if they pass a state to the state machine that's not supported. Okay. And actually, I want you to have like keyword parameters rather than positional parameters, and then it will change that. That's a whole different workflow that's more powerful than just, you know, a Google Copilot spitting out a few options for you. But if none of them are right, you still have to write the code yourself.
Right, exactly.
But both of those involve you knowing what needs to be done and
exactly
how to do it.
Yes, exactly. And which we're never going to remove, right? I mean, we can move it to higher levels of abstraction, basically is what we're saying, right? Is that this is a new tool. So like we may be moving into an era right now, we're at 4th generation coding languages, right? I guess 1st generation was probably binary zeros and ones. We've got like our later generation languages. I guess maybe second generation is assembly and 3rd is C. I don't know. I'm guessing. I'd have to go and look it up in the Wikipedia. But the idea is that we may be getting to the point where we start having 5th generation languages where we're specifying prompts, right, rather than the lower level code that we're used to, but you still need the human in the loop, right? The human still has to absolutely be there. You can't, it's like, I remember Iron Man's Jarvis, right? If you guys have seen Iron Man, like Iron Man just, Robert Downey Jr. just, his character, Tony Stark, just talks to his computer and tells it what to do. He's basically giving like these high level prompts, and he's programming it all in to do that. But I feel like that's kind of where we're going, is we're getting away from like the details of each individual line and getting to higher level. Would you agree, Chad?
Yeah, and like to Koala, Kristen's point about design and testing, I see that getting filled out more and more. It'll be, more towards the end-to-end, top of the pyramid type test. You'll say, hey, I want a UI that looks like this, and here's the, the data structure that I want behind it. And I want this screen flow, and this should, and somehow through whatever interface that they give you, you specify that and you say, and I also want you to write some end-to-end tests for this, some Cypress tests or something. And it spits out most of the code to do that. And I definitely see over the coming years and definitely decades that it will get better and better at that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But the human is still in the loop. That's the main point. There will still be the need for software developers that know how to read code and edit it and get it connected and solve bugs, right? And push out updates. So there's still, the developers are certainly in the loop for sure. They just might change the nature of those jobs a little bit, I think.
And the people who do embrace this and know how to use it, like learn how to write prompts effectively, learn how to use the tools, are the ones that will be more marketable.
Yep. And actually, that's kind of the way Google was. Like if we want an analogy, those of you learning to code now in the Google era may not recognize this, but I mean, Chad, I know you started coding before Google was a thing. So did I.
It was like a shelf of books, all this thick. That was
exactly. You had an index of a textbook, because when I learned to code, that's what I had too. It was just before Google made it big. And so like, it's almost like the transformation that happened when Google became part of the software developers workflow, right? Oh, well, now I can Google everything that everyone knows. And so now we have this new search paradigm. It's with these prompts that we can now have it generate for us, not just retrieve, right? We're just kind of leveling up what that capability is. And so, even still today, the coders that actually know how to query Google effectively to get the answers that they want are a huge level of efficiency, because they can solve problems that they've never seen before, but access the solutions that other people on the internet have found. And so it's the same thing here. When someone learns how to use this new tool, they're going to level up in their efficiency for sure. Awesome. Anything to add to that, Chad? You look deep in thought.
I, for one, welcome our robot overlords.
I love it. I love it. So good. Awesome. So what I'd love to do now is we have a bunch of folks here from the Joy of Coding Academy. What I want to do is we're going to take this and we're going to keep this going so you guys have an opportunity to ask live questions, but I just wanted to wrap it up for the Facebook group members. If you do have questions, if you're watching this afterwards, please don't hesitate to post. I know Chad's in the group, I'm in the group. We'll keep engaging, and we're happy to answer questions if you have it. So thank you again. If you're in Joy of Coding Academy, don't leave yet. We'll open this up for you guys to ask some live questions in just a minute. But I wanted to thank Chad for his time today and this amazing discussion. It was so good. And again, I'm Dr. Emily from the Joy of Coding Academy. If you have questions and if you're looking to become a six-figure software developer, please don't hesitate to reach out and we'll get you hooked up and connected with whatever resources make sense for you. All right. And have a great day and stay tuned. We got more live stuff coming in the group soon. All right. Take care.